Hello, everybody. Welcome to the second episode of The Business Shower. I'm very happy to have you with me today. And it's not just you, I have a special guest with us, somebody I admire a lot. I know you have heard this statement from me many a times, but Tariq is different from everybody else. So let me begin with a very brief introduction to Tariq. Tariq Qureishy is the futurist, as you must have read in my posts before. He not only talks about future, he can give you accurate forecasts as well. I know you're running a lot of podcasts these days, part of your brand elevation, part of your, let's say, marketing. Tariq is somebody who started off with hosting different shows and podcasts in 2016. Am I right, Tariq? So he's
Absolutely.
one of the pioneers in this and has always been a greatest inspiration for myself. Apart from this, he is the CEO of Mad Talks, let me say Mad Group, an exponential EQ and X Talks. He has always been a favorite with the media. You must have seen him on different talk shows multiple times. He has also been heading different global forums and have been talking about the future of business and finance globally. And he has a lot of consultation to his credit that gives him the experience of becoming one of those amazing leaders everybody looks up to whenever they need advice about business. So welcome to the Business Shower, Tariq, and I'm so happy to have you with me.
Thank you, Nousheen. Thank you very much. Wonderful. And I'm humbled by your introduction. Thank you very much indeed. I hope I can live up to it and all the things that I've done. I mean, I have a one-line CV, which is right in front of you. And I'll share a little story with you. And I think it'll set the tone for today. I was teaching a Harvard Business School class about 2 years ago. And people asked me, how long should a resume CV be? And after a lot of discussion, they all said 1 page. And I said, no, 2 pages. So what? 2 page CV? I said, yeah, 2 pages. So all of you are very smart people, double degrees, finance, engineering, law, this, that, and the other. So that's your success CV. Everybody has it. All of you have now become a commodity for me. The other side is your failure CV. What did you screw up at? What did you fall down at? How did you get up again? Because I want people who have courage. I want people who are resourceful, who have heart, who have spirit. These are the people who are going to survive in the future, especially as technology and so on becomes much more, and the world becomes more automated. The human element of the future. So failure or learnings is what I learned the most from. And I've had massive failures in my life. And I've learned more from all the wonderful things that you have mentioned. Funnily enough, I've learned from my failures more than the wonderful things that you said. So I have the humility to be able to accept, but the courage to be able to look at that, absorb it, and move forward. Courage is not the absence of fear of failure. Courage is the ability to take failure on board, take difficulties and challenges on board, and keep moving forward. And that is what some of the best people are able to do. So that's put the stake in the ground that this conversation between us is going to be very different. Guess what? I want everybody to write all their failures and their failure CVs. So the one takeaway from today is your failure CV. What did you learn and how do you move forward?
Great. That's something very different, Tariq. Usually people want to talk about all their achievements in their CVs and they don't want to talk about what they failed at.
Yeah. And I think that is what is one of the issues, because the way we are trained, our education system is very much a 20th century education system. And the world that we're living in is completely different. So we are being trained at school to be repetitive, to learn on a repetitive basis, a lot of homework, not enough focus and time on creativity, innovation, experimentation, which is also another word for failure. There is just not enough. If I ever didn't get an A, my parents were distraught. If I wasn't, going to a top university, they were extremely worried. So everything is just focused. Our education system is wrong. I think that's one of the key things that we'll talk about in the future of how a mind shift has to happen. But before you go there, let's just take a step back and build the context. Firstly, I hope the people who are here on this call, on this webinar, you're healthy and you're safe and your family is well, looked after, because we are going through very difficult times. And anybody who says that that's not the case, then they're not really being realistic. I see there are 4 pandemics out there. There's the pandemic of the virus, which is invading our body. There's a pandemic of fear and isolation. There are a lot of people who stayed inside, and now slowly they're coming out. There's a pandemic of insecurity and fear and despair that is clicking in. But the worst one of the lot is the pandemic of disinformation, misinformation, too much information, because we're getting overwhelmed by information, and there's so much crap flying around that we just can't really discern what is real and what's not. And I think it's really, really important right now to step back and to breathe and to then be able to take the information and go forward, because there's a lot of disinformation out there. And so there are these multiple pandemics that are going on. We need to be able to handle those multiple pandemics simultaneously. So it needs a completely different mindset, a new shift in thinking, which will enable you to build your future.
Yes. And I personally feel that there is a lot of ranting about a lot of problems, and that's been lethal to many ideas, with the result that many people who did not know what they're doing were actually trying to help many people and were not ending up helping them well enough. And that is because of a little bit of misinformation too, because they started believing something about themselves which wasn't there. Okay, moving forward, I want to know and come back to our most important topic today. Future forecasting for business. What do we expect from businesses? Okay. What, as a business owner, should we look forward to?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a small business owner. I've led billion-dollar corporations, and I've been on my own. So I've made the coffee, I've done everything, while I've also looked after $1 billion and 1,000 people. So I've been on both sides of the coin. So future forecasting, there's an art and there's a science to it. The science is all the trend analysis, the data, and so on. So that is really, really important. The art of it is the ability for our mindset to think differently. In the past, 20th century companies were designed around productivity, efficiency, managing and controlling assets. They're built around control, and most important word was scarcity. If you can control something and make it scarce, therefore you have a business. 75% of these companies are going down by 2025. 75%. Yes,
because Tariq, control is no longer a strategy.
Control is not a strategy anymore, absolutely. So the 21st century companies are around collaboration, around platforms, around ecosystems, around taking risks. And those companies who are not able to make that shift are the ones that are going to suffer the first. So the first thing we need to do is to be able to move away from our mindset from this thinking of scarcity to the thinking of abundance. The world is abundant. Now, everybody looks around and says, what abundance? You know, we have a financial crisis, we have a climate problem, et cetera, et cetera. And I'd like to say that I think what we need to do is to look up, move that little curtain away and look beyond that. So forecasting has to be done from a completely different lens to what we have been used to. Now, if you look at people who have done forecasting, for example, take solar energy, for example. 20 years ago, people thought solar energy was just a joke. 10 years ago, people thought the solar energy is a nice little fad. It's just a little trend that's going to come in and go away. And what was happening was that as companies get onto the Moore's law curve, which is the exponential curve, that once a product becomes digital, which is information driven and connected, anything that becomes digital gets onto this curve. What that basically means is you can start doubling in terms of speed, doubling in terms of processing, doubling in terms of power. Yeah, here's a good example of exactly that curve. That is an exponential curve. Now, linear companies think from the past, they extend to the future. Exponential companies think differently. So therefore, a lot of our trend analysis, and that's why I was mentioning solar energy. Solar energy is going on that curve, while the traditional thinkers in the energy space are thinking, oh, well, it's going to grow 10% a year. It doesn't work like that. Once you get into a doubling cycle, it just explodes. So forecasting has to be done with a new mindset. Now, this is where I'll say something else for today, which is going to be controversial, and that is that experts are the biggest problem in the world because they think they know everything, but they know everything from the past. They have worked very hard on it and on case studies and so on. So there's nothing wrong with their intellect, but there's something which is about exponential thinking. Exponential, nobody can think double, 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 double. And after about 6 or 7 doublings, people can't think anymore because the numbers become too large. So to answer your question in a very simplistic way, future forecasting is based on a different mindset, a mindset of abundance. Future forecasting is based on a digital environment, which is exponential in nature. Exponential by definition means it doubles every year or 18 months, in some cases even faster than that. So we need a forecast on that. The third thing is that in the past, if you were a telecoms industry, you were the telecoms industry. Today, if I was advising a telecoms industry CEO or board, I would say that the telecoms business, the future of telecoms is not the telecoms business. That's just a commodity. The future of telecoms is into healthcare and into financial services. When I go into banks, I said the future of banks is not banking. And they also tell me, say, hang on, what the hell is it? Then I say,
We will talk about banking later, yes.
We will talk about banking. So the idea of this forecasting is that when you are a telco, tomorrow's telcos are going to be using the platform, using their connectivity, and building apps around healthcare data, building apps around financial services, building apps around e-commerce. Why do you need Kareem to create a brand to have a service that's delivered? Why can't the telecoms do it? So what you have to start doing is looking at adjacencies and what other things are happening. So let me give you an example, a really relevant one. In 1451, Johannes Gutenberg invented the printing press. When he invented the printing press, everything changed. Religion changed, education changed, commerce changed, everything changed. One adjustment only. And today, there are over 20 of these Gutenberg moments happening simultaneously. If you can just share that slide, please, Nousheen, with the boxes. Of these industries, 15 of these Gutenberg moments are happening simultaneously, whether it's 3D printing or artificial intelligence or quantum computing. Each one of them are happening simultaneously. And then they cross over with each other. So exponential trends in one is combining with an exponential trend with the other and quadrupling not just doubling, but quadrupling the change that's going to happen. So therefore, we cannot think in the old-fashioned way. We have to redesign and reposition our thinking and structure. And there are various ways of doing it. And some of the coaching work that we do is to demonstrate exactly how these changes come about. So forecasting in the future is different to ones that in the past. And we have to look and understand some of these initiatives.
In a different way, of course.
Is it difficult? I know it's very, what I said is very nuanced and very difficult just to pick up immediately. And as the session progresses, I think people will understand more and more in terms of the forecasting. So it's not a formula. I mean, I can give you a formula, but that won't mean much. But I think it's more a feel and an understanding and an intuition. But the basics are there. Abundance, digital, doubling, and exponential. That's why we call our company Exponential, by the way. Yeah, because everything in the future is exponential.
So what do we expect from present times? How good it is for businesses and what businesses can make of it?
You know that over the last 500 years, after every major crisis, we had the Black Death in the Middle Ages was followed by the Renaissance. We had the Spanish flu, it was the Roaring Twenties. Then we have the Second World War, the biggest reconstruction in the world has ever seen. Then we went on and we moved into the financial crisis in 2009. After 2009, what came out of the financial crisis? Dropbox, blockchain came out from there, WhatsApp came out from there, Airbnb, Uber. All of these companies came out immediately after the previous financial crisis. So in this crisis, again, many, many new companies. I promise you that in about 2 years' time, there'll be another 200 companies, of which 10 or 20 of them will be amazing organizations that are addressing our needs for today. So on the one side, we have the crisis, but on the other side, we have new opportunities, and I'll address that. Now, so that's number one. But what we have to...
Yeah, sorry to cut you short.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, what can we do on a day-to-day basis, yeah? So there are a lot of business owners on this thing. There are a lot of entrepreneurs on this particular call and this particular webinar. So the first thing is, you have to take this into 3 scenarios. Scenario number 1 is a 3 to 6 month scenario, and we are still within that scenario. And that's the oxygen mask scenario. We have to wear our oxygen mask. We have to find a way to survive. And guess what? First thing is we put our own oxygen mask before we give it to our neighbor. So wear the oxygen mask. Survive, breathe, number 1. And this is about resilience. This is about recovery. This is about getting yourself together. So that's the phase 1. We are still in that phase. For the next 2-3 months, we'll still remain in that phase. The next phase is what I call the resilience and development phase. This is a 6 to 12 months or 6 to 18 month phase, which basically takes us to the next July. In these 12 months, the world is going to fundamentally change, because by about October, November, the companies that have been struggling for the first 4, 5, 6 months are going to start going under. Do you know the world has 880 airlines, and they expect that 80% of those airlines will either be bust or less than 50% by 31st of December. 80% of the airlines of the world. Now, we need to find a way to restructure that and build resilience within this. How do we redefine our airline space? How do we redefine our hotel and hospitality space? How do we redefine our restaurants and so on? This is the time, 6-month scenario, and it requires different disciplines. It requires strategy. It requires new thinking. It requires additional platform. It requires collaboration. It requires new systems of barter or new payment mechanisms and so on. That's the second phase. The third phase is what I call the reinvention phase. In the next 12 months, we need to be able to reinvent ourselves. If this webinar is next August, if we have not reinvented ourselves again, we will not be able to survive the next 1 to 2 years. And that's the most difficult thing. I have reinvented myself at least 3 or 4 times in my life, and we'll talk about that towards the end. But in this present focus, we need to protect all of the things that is on the slide, which is about employee protection, cash. But one of the most important things is the supply chain. The supply chain has broken down, basically. China used to be the factory of the world and used to produce and redistribute to the world. This thing has suddenly demonstrated to us how interconnected the world is and how dependent we are on this kind of supply chains. So the supply chains are all moving closer to home. So you, as entrepreneurs, need to tap into those supply chains that are coming closer to home. So farming is going to come much closer to home. Health is going to come much closer to home. A lot of production can come closer, so we can basically absorb or invite technology. 3D printing is going to start changing the way we will address things in the future in terms of production and new products and so on. So we need to look at all of those things that are coming closer to us in the supply chain, because in 12 months' time, if we have not reinvented our supply chain and depending, everything will be fine, it won't. Everything needs to come much, much closer. So that would be one of my biggest pieces of advice to the entrepreneurs is look at those things that are imminent in terms of change. So, for example, there's a lot of behavior change from Dubai as a city, and the region, generally speaking, is very consumer driven. So our businesses were created around driving sales and expenditure. What the COVID crisis has taught us is to preserve cash, is to preserve wealth. So the whole model has just switched from spending to preservation. So we have to now switch based upon that. The whole model was about going out. Now it's coming back in. Family relationships have changed. The whole thing has changed again. We are going back much, much closer to foundational principles. So these are the psychological shifts that are taking place. and we need to really carefully look at that. Something I wanted to mention earlier on, and I forgot in our conversation, but the key word for me, if there's one word that you need to remember from today, one word, and that word is trust. The whole world has come together around trust. Let me explain that in greater depth. There's something called social capital, which Dubai is doing very well in, which New Zealand did very well, and South Korea. So social capital is a sense of belonging, connection, networking, and trust that come together. Also, this is the first time in the last 100 to 150 years where we have one common enemy, the coronavirus itself. So 100 million, 250 million people are coming together, scientists, technologists, epidemiologists, technicians, geneticists, all of these people are coming together and saying, we will work together to kill this. Therefore, I'm very hopeful. Therefore, this will pass. We will win and we'll get past this. But the way we can coordinate and collaborate is around trust. If you don't trust each other, it won't work. Right now, we can't travel from point A to point B if we don't trust. You can't travel because we need to know the person getting on the plane and getting off the plane has had the negative PCR test on both ends as the only basis on which we will travel. So we have to start trusting countries, trusting systems, taking those kinds of trust leaps. So trust is going to be the fundamental driver. Now, let's bring that trust back into our own environment. Emirates Airlines, for example, has built a new strategy around one issue only, and that's safety. It's not about luxury. It's not about any of those things. It's about safety and convenience with that safety, insurance with that safety, and things like that. So the whole philosophy is that you go into a restaurant, if you trust that they are clean, if you trust that they have enough right spaces and so on, then it will. So trust is one of the core drivers of the future. And with that comes empathy, values, and humanity. You've got to have, when you have an exponential crisis, we need to have exponential empathy and compassion. And I think one of the things we will learn from this particular crisis is how we can combine and collaborate and have common values as we go forward. I know this is all soft and fluffy, but it's not. It's actually, trust is a very hard issue and how we bring it all together. And in our coronavirus environment, in this COVID environment, that is the thing which in business is going to be the primary driver as we go forward. So I hope that answers some of the elements, some of the new changes that are happening there.
So I believe that trust is more important for our new normal strategy than all other features.
What is more important? Trust is actually trust has always been important, but suddenly it has become much, much more important than ever before.
Right. So many of us are saying there are hardly any opportunities, and it's so difficult to approach people now. It's so difficult to understand how they're thinking. So how do we understand why and what are the things that we need to do in next 12 months to bring things back to, let's say, the new normal? How do we understand how we cope with the new normal? How do we operate now? What should we expect from next 12 months?
Sure. So may I just comment on one of the words that you used? You said back to normal. There's no back to, it's only forward to. So our first thing is to take the word back away from our vocabulary. There's no going back, it's only forward, number one. Number two is that things were happening in our society and in our business environment anyway. What the COVID crisis has done is just accelerated it. So if companies were weak, what the crisis did was actually break their backs. The companies that were resilient are not going down. They're fighting their way. And there are some companies, there's a book written by Nassim Taleb, it's called Anti-Fragile. And so there's some 25-30% of the companies will go under. And this is the way a forest, even big trees fall in a forest. The huge trees come down and new shoots come up. So you as entrepreneurs are the little shoots that are coming up when big trees are actually coming up. So that's number one. You have to be able to see what is going to happen in the future when these big trees come down. That's 25-30% of the people. So 40-50% of the companies will find a way, they'll struggle, they'll survive, they'll adjust, they'll pivot, an overused word in the last 6 months. They'll find a way to reorganize themselves and go and move forward. 20 to 25% of the companies are going to thrive, not survive, thrive. And you folks need to ask yourself the question, what are the three things that I need to do to thrive? What do I need to do to become anti-fragile? So as there is so if you look at the technology companies and the platform and ecosystem-based companies in the United States, they have grown over $700 billion in the course of the last 5-6 months, since the 18th of March. Jeff Bezos' personal wealth has gone up by $70 billion. Mark Zuckerberg by 20 billion, and. What they have done is created platforms that whether you have a crisis or an economic problem or an earthquake, whatever, they will always find a way because they have a broad-based platform. If they had a single product companies are struggling, but broad-based ecosystems are doing fine. So you feel, Nousheen, that there is scarcity. There's only scarcity in the old style of businesses, working in a traditional way. Guess what? We have been fast-tracked because of the crisis. Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, a couple of months ago, said something very interesting, and it's very deep and meaningful. What he said that in 10 years of digital transformation has happened in 3 months during this crisis.
Yeah.
3 months versus 10 years. He actually said that. I have another chart which I can share with you if you like, that the total growth of value in e-commerce over the last 10 years is equivalent to the last 3 months. So effectively, last 10 years has given us more, last 3 months has given us more growth in terms of value and adoption of e-commerce as a tool than the previous 10 years. So companies are accelerating, and there are at least 15, 20 industries that are exploding. The health industry is exploding. Telepresence industry is going to explode. 3D printing is going to explode. Anything that is touchless and voice and stuff like that is going to explode. Anything to do with the supply chain and bringing them closer to you will explode. Anything that has to do with agriculture and new kinds of food and development will explode. I can go on and on and on. There are so many businesses that are going to. Now, if I have been doing a certain distribution business or certain parts of or something like that, and that is not required, and my business goes down, sure, it will go down. World changes. You need to be able to, and that's what pivoting is about, is the ability to rethink and reinvent yourself and to be able to build new platforms and to get into a new direction without being able to, to get stuck. So you have to stop thinking that we live in the world of scarcity. The people who are weak, sorry to say this, and I'm being very blunt here, people who are weak are going to hide behind, oh, well, there's no opportunity. Oh, well, there's a cancer. I'm sorry. If that is your mindset, then you will get stuck. So come out into the open, find new ways of doing things. Do you think that after the Second World War, there were, people had lost families and things like that? The Spanish flu in 1918, 1919 lost 50 million people. We haven't even crossed 1 million. There were 50 million who died at that point in time, and they still survived and people did better. So I think it's a mindset shift that we have to do and to build our personal resilience. And on that, I would just add something really important is our personal health resilience. Do you know that over 50% of the people in US that died initially were basically out of the first 100,000 people that died in the US were in old age homes. But the next layer were not the old people, about 70 and above, but were actually in the middle of between 40 and 60, which is a lot of us out there. They were the people who were struggling more. So we need to have our blood pressure, our obesity, our basic health and immunity system and nutrition and balance very strong. Because the only protection of the future is our personal health. And I think health resilience becomes an integral part. So when you add all of these up, Nousheen, we are going through difficult times. I acknowledge that right in the beginning. Yeah. But we are not going through times where there is no hope or no opportunity, whatever. That's just our mindset. If we can just open our minds and say, what else is out there? I need to find a way. Ask a mother who cannot feed a child whether she will find a way to feed that child. She will. Ask somebody who has to survive a difficult situation. The mindset is and that's why immigrants do so well. That's why a lot of the people who come to this part of the world do so well. They have a one-way ticket here. If you burn your boats, the whole mentality that we need to have right now is burning your boats and moving forward. Can't go back. There's nothing back. It's only forward. You will find a way. And I think that's the human psychology and safety that you need to have to create for yourself.
Right. We got a comment from someone here. It says, we are so fortunate to be going through this digital transformation. Even if there are failures, we can stand up tall and fight back, using all resources and tools available right in this era. I think this connects very well with your message of hope and the presence of opportunities even in present times.
Absolutely. And what Sarib is saying is 100% spot on. I mean, this is exactly, and if this is the mindset that we move forward with and say, let's look at the opportunity rather than the challenge. Let's look at the way that we can move forward. And again, I can give you many, many examples of companies that are thriving in this particular pandemic. Insurance companies are coming up with new strategies. Restaurants are coming up with kitchen as a service. Airlines, the frequently, like Ryanair and these kinds of airlines, they're going into cargo. They're doing point-to-point cargo. So they just completely pivoted their business. Hotels are being used as office spaces. And that is another one that is going to happen, is that the nomad workers, the white-collar workers like you and me, Nousheen, if 1% of us become what are called nomadic workers, not the gig workers, that's one community, but nomadic workers, the white-collar workers who only work on projects and so on. Think of it like...
Let me add something. I've been a nomadic worker since 2 years.
Okay, there you go.
It's difficult for me to sit in my office. Like, I cannot. I have to keep moving to wonderful places and work.
Absolutely. Sure. So think of it like a Bollywood or Hollywood. What do? They have a movie, which is a project. The best of the best come into that project. They create that project and then they disband. Okay. Why can't this be a new way of working? Why do we need jobs? Do you think these people don't have jobs? They are all super skilled, but they come together for a project and then disband and then go to the next project. And of course, we get unemployment. Difficulty in some of our income and curve up and down in terms of our earnings, so we don't have a straight curve. So think like that. Think in terms of creation of projects and so on. So these nomadic workers will become the savior for hotels, not tourists, but nomadic workers, business workers. So what is happening is that hotels have to think differently. Airlines have to become more in terms of moving from passenger to cargo, for example, and a lot of them are doing it. So as the supply chains move closer, 50%. So Emirates Airlines, I remember Ram Menon used to be the head of cargo and started Emirates Cargo. He said, we have what we call an invisible passenger. The cargo is the invisible passenger. They are the ones who sit at the back, under the layer that you don't see. But Emirates Airlines' early success happened only on the basis of cargo. They broke even on cargo, and even one passenger became profit. And that's how they initially built up the organization. So when they opened up a new route, they used to think, okay, can we make enough money on cargo? So when they started the Maldives, they had 3 flights to the Maldives. Who goes to Maldives? It didn't matter because Maldives is an island. They need fresh food and supplies and so on. And therefore the airline and the whole delivery there was based around cargo. And then the passengers followed. So lots and lots of new businesses and a new way of thinking, and the opportunities are actually there.
Yeah. So let's talk about financial planning. What do you think is an efficient financial plan in these days, in the present economy, when things are uncertain, when it's difficult to understand what's going to happen in the next 3 to 6 months? How do we go about it?
Preserve cash. Preserve cash as much as you can. I know it sounds really, really weird, but honestly, I think at the moment, cash is king. That's the first rule of financial planning. The second thing is look at assets as opposed to cash and see how we can monetize some of those assets. Then that would be the second thing. Could there be any rentals and could there be any forward payments and so on? The third thing, I work very, very closely with a friend of mine, Bob, is based in Canada. Actually, no, Seattle, Washington now. He's originally Canadian, but he's there. And that's barter. Barter is a new way of creating cash and exchanging goods and services. One of the oldest ways of doing things, but we are able to exchange that. So what effectively happens is that I have 10 cars in my fleet to deliver equipment, but my business is down. So how can I now use my 9 cars to be able to, I'm using only one, and we can find ways to barter. So when there's shortage of cash, barter becomes a very effective way of doing it. And the way I describe barter versus cash, cash is a motorboat. So we can point our boat and the machine gets us there. Barter is like being a sailor. So you need to position yourself and sail with the wind and stuff like that. So it's just a little bit more difficult and a little bit more clever to be able to get there. But you actually can create a lot of cash through that. Forward selling is another thing. Collaborative structures is another way to create cash and opportunity in the present.
I strongly believe in collaborations, yes.
It is one of the key things that is going to define our future is how could we collaborate, cooperate, and there's a lot of the word cooperation, that competitors come together and find ways to work together. So these are some of the things that we can do. Now, when it comes to specific financial planning, I think, and perhaps there's a question later on in terms of fundraising and so on, that financial planning at this point in time is going through obviously a lot of uncertainty. And therefore, what we need to do is find ways to work with our teams. We believe that we have a sense of entitlement and a right to a salary. And if we don't get our salary, the world has ended, and we can't do anything else. So a lot of people's salaries are being adjusted and so on. I think one has to be very creative in the way that we can deal with that. Airbnb did something interesting. They made 25% of their people redundant. And when they made them redundant, they left them with their laptops because their laptops were connected to the future. So that was number one. Number two, all of them got references, and all of them had internal mentors within Airbnb. So even though 2,500 people left, they had 2,500 people inside the company looking and connecting with them. That's the way to fire people. Unlike what Uber did, which was a 3-minute Zoom call and say, your folks are gone. So this is how you build psychological safety and trust. And this is what Airbnb ended up doing. So look at ways to collaborate with your teams. Look at ways to collaborate with your customers. By the way, as a personal example, I had a huge order book in the first 3 months. We were doing really well and literally growing like that. And then the COVID crisis.
To be honest.
No, it was.
Everything was
as a public.
So well. I was signing new contracts. I was so super happy.
Absolutely. And I think the Q1 this year was very, very robust for a lot of people. And bang, this thing happened. And within about 4 to 6 weeks, we completely changed our entire business model. Every single thing became digital, firstly. Number two, for what I used to get $10,000 for a keynote speech, for the same kind of time and activity, I'm getting $1,500. So I lost 85% of my earning. Now I can freak out and say, "Oh, well, what am I going to do?" This is the pivoting I'm talking about. I had to change my mindset. So saying I don't preserve my value that my keynote speech is worth $10,000 to $15,000. I had to change that perception and said, no, I'm now going to become more global, and I'll create volume as opposed to individual value for time. So I had to shift. I had to shift my thinking. So first was mindset. Second was platform. Third was creation of volume. Fourth was changing of pricing. Fifth was relationship with customers. So what I started doing was build lots and lots of webinars, because when this thing started, when we all went into lockdown in March, April, people were like, oh, what do we do? I went to all of my customers and actually helped them and invested with them in terms of time, because I am a media person, so I can do lots of things. We did webinars in Turkey, in Saudi Arabia, in Nigeria, in Pakistan, in Oman. We were doing all sorts of things with all sorts of new people. Now people have become really good at it. We need to now move to the next level. But at that time, we did that. Guess what's happening? Those precise companies are coming back to us today. Tariq, you helped us 3 months, 4 months ago, and we've been thinking of doing a virtual summit. Can you please help us? We're planning to do something with our customers. Can you help? So I invested then. So it is about investing at the time of weakness. That is what courage is about. This is how we need to be able to look forward.
Great.
So financial planning has to be.
I like your phrase, investing in the time of weakness.
Absolutely. Always go against the grain of what people expect you to do. When people are expecting you to grab something, move back and say, how can I help you? How can I serve you? What can I do for you? They will remember. The good people will remember. And interestingly enough, if you look around yourself, the people who have been there for you are the ones who will be there with you as you go forward. Invest in them. And this is an investment of a different kind. Another piece of financial planning is, both Nousheen, you and I have value in terms of our time. So let's say you can forward sell your time. Let's say you would sell $1,000 a day, and you want to sell 4 days a month, and you sell it forward. In other words, give your time to companies that don't pay you today, but pay you in 6 months' time.
Okay. That's a good strategy.
Yeah, just forward sell it. So what you're doing is you're building a huge amount of actual physical, not only goodwill, but call it loyalty points, for want of a better word. Call your air miles, but you're building number of hours, number of days. And this is paying it forward and taking it forward. But this, I think, would become a new business platform that we should be able to. We have spare time today. Companies can't afford me today. Can they? So they can pay me premium money, but in 12 months' time.
Yeah,
like you can make It is like about credit, but I mean it's about storing value. So we should be able to value our time as consultants, as advisors, as PR people, as entrepreneurs, and so on, and say as coaches, for example. And if you help people to come out of their difficult times, that is when they start paying you. And what is going to define all of this? Trust, again. Because if people want to screw you, they'll say, yeah, thank you very much, and they can't pay you and then go away. That mentality has to change. Pardon?
I'm saying I hope that doesn't happen to people. Like, in these times, everybody...
Sadly, Nousheen, it will. But I would say it's, again, the 80-20 rule. 80% of the time we'll be fine. But the 20% of the time we will we'll be let down. And I think we need to be able to take the rough with the smooth and be able to do this. So another thing which I'd like to talk about, I just remembered in terms of the 80-20 rule, is when you're doing your financial planning and your business planning, look at your company. Let's say you have a company of 20 people. Nice mid-sized company. 80% of the people, that's 16 people, need to spend 150% of the time looking after the core, managing the core, preserving the business, and building the future. 20% of the people, that's 4 people, you need to take them out. They should be the smartest people, the most future-thinking people, and so on, and make this into an innovation cell, into a future cell. I think if you can help with that slide, the future slide, please. Then this is how you help start building the future. So the future foresight, build a nerve center, an innovation center, a future center, and keep these people outside your day-to-day business. Don't let them be infected. And create a new portfolio of actions. Then let them only think about the future. Once you've done that, that is the only way forward. So I was talking to a bank recently which has 5,000 employees. So I spoke to the board and they said, how can we do that? That's very fundamental. And I said, yes, it is. So 5,000 people means that either 1,000 people will be only future oriented, or you have to hire another 1,000 people to be future oriented. So he said, we can't hire that many people. So I said, no problem. 4,000 people will focus on your core. 1,000 people will focus on your future. Can you imagine the power that will be released in that bank if 1,000 people will only be working on the future? It will change the bank. That's the
And the
new way of
planning.
thinking. And the planning and thinking and mindset and come up with the ideas. And for the next 3-4 years, 80% will still be there, but the 20% of the new people will shift and change that. By 2025, the 20% will become the 80% and the others will go down to 20%. And this is where we need courage. You know, when things are at their most difficult, we need to have the greatest amount of courage. Right now is the time for innovation. This is not the time to pull away from innovation. It is to dive into innovation. You know, when you go, you do windsurfing, and you go on top of that, you actually go into the wave. You don't run away from the wave, because if you run away from the wave takes you down. So you have to find a way to attack the wave. And the ones who are able to do that will actually succeed. And this, again, is about courage. We need to not, at the moment, I know it's difficult, folks. I am a small company owner. I am struggling with cash flow. I'm you know, people, the number of no's that I'm getting these days is even more than my early sales days. I mean, I'm getting 9 no's to 1 yes. It's tough. I'm not saying it's not. But my mindset is, how can we find ways and how can we recalibrate ourselves and keep experimenting until we find the right formula where people will connect. I mean, we are running this program. Perhaps you will want to talk about this Future of Finance program, and this is where we have some challenges like that. How do we calibrate that? Perhaps this is a good segue to get into that.
Yeah, let me show the Future of Finance program so that
Dr. Shambhavi said you need guts to do that, and it will be futuristic. Yes, Doctor, you need guts, you need courage. You need heart, you need soul, you need spirit, you need faith, you need connection. You need to have this innate belief within yourself that we will find a way and we will prevail. I'm absolutely certain we will prevail. As human beings, we are resilient. As human beings, we are creative. We are born creative. We just need to find that inner strength and inner will and desire. And people who have no excuses in terms of they have to survive to move forward, I promise you, you will find a way. 80 to 90% of us will be fine. The 10 to 20% of us who will struggle with this environment, we need to find a way to help them. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is not a time for judgment, judging other people. Everybody is going through a different journey. It's the time for empathy, and it's the time for compassion. Don't judge people if they're struggling. Help them if you can. Yeah, and this is, if we can start with that mentality, we'll be able. This is not a time to be strict and to be how shall I say? We need to have generosity as our spirit right now, rather than being going into control. So these are the kinds of things that we need to be able to do right now, and courage and empathy are the ones that we should work with.
Let me show them the graphics for the finance program. So if you are if you want to do your financial planning, you're wondering how exactly to do it, it's easy for you to reach out to Tariq for help. And this is a program that's coming up. You may sign up for this one and easily go ahead with your Future of Finance.
Thank you, Nousheen. If you could just leave it there for a second. Let me explain the thinking behind this. We work very closely with the DIFC. They're our partners on this one. And a lot of the programs that they were doing in the DIFC Academy was all about technical skills and historical information. We are one of the first future-oriented programs that they are doing, so we've become one of their early flagship programs. So that's number one. Second thing is that we are so worried about working on today that we are not engaging with tomorrow. But the world of finance is completely changing. Now, as we move into the future and to a digital future, a lot of the banks, they put your bank statement online or something on their mobile. That's what I call iterative and incremental digital development. what are the opportunities are in the exponential shift that's taking place. And I have what I call the 10 rules of the future of banking and finance, and I'll share some of them. The first one is the most important one. And that first one is that we have to go back to what I call the foundational principles of banking. So when you think of banking, what are the foundational principles? First thing is to sort of store value so that you have money and you put it into a bank account or some kind of a wallet. The second is transactions, exchanging money. And the third is lending and credit. So if you could put a little wallet or a box around it, put it on the cloud and have it on your cell phone, basically you got yourself a bank. You don't need a branch. You don't need anything. The world's largest bank at this point in time is Ant Financial, which is part of Alibaba, Alipay, and Taobao. And the world's largest money market fund is something called Yoebao. Yoebao is $350 billion worth of money which is being held in a fund. And it was never, so there are no branches. There are, the money is not going anywhere. What it is basically, it's in people's wallets, in their mobile wallets. So if you were earning $1,000, let's say, and you saved, you only spent $900, you had $100 left. Next month, you only spent $800, you have $200 left. Suddenly you have $300 in your wallet. So what Jack Ma saw was, hang on, this is this idle cash lying around. So he created this concept of Yoebao. Yoebao in Chinese means hidden treasures. And he created this fund, so to speak, with one click, that you can put away $10, $20, $50, whatever they want, into this money market fund, and they can draw it back at any point in time they like. So they created a new kind of saving behavior, and they created $350 billion, the world's largest fund. So the reason I'm sharing this is that all they did was they went back to foundational principles of banking. And the future of banking is not banks, it's technology. It's building a whole ecosystems and platform. The future of banking is using AI and AR, VR, and voice related. Digital onboarding in the future is going to be voice driven or biometric driven. Nobody needs a signature, a pen, or something like that to sign. So the regulators are starting getting on board. So where are we going with this is for entrepreneurs. We create new opportunities in terms of fintech and financial, because every organization in the future, whether you're an airline or a hotel or whatever, will actually become a financial services organization, because all the products are now given on platforms. So you can create services, payment as a service, security as a service, fraud as a service. So you can provide all of these new things. So it's a really, really important time for fintechs and young entrepreneurs, new companies that are coming up like yourselves. So it's a good time. That's what we're talking about. Yes.
The first one is from Karima. She wants to know that if all companies or most of them should go digital online and introduce e-commerce. She's asking, is it important for everybody to create apps, or is it just an option?
No, it's just an option. I think going digital is very important. Apps is a very tough business, by the way. Do you know that generally people don't download apps? I mean, if they download one new app a month, it's considered a very, very high level of app download. People have their existing apps and they take it on from there. What is actually happening is that super apps are being created and cross-fertilization is happening. So if you have a Talabat app, which is delivering you food, after a while, there's enough data that's been collected, and perhaps that same app can be applied for other things. It could be not food, but it could be movies. It could be ride services. It could be other deliveries. So what is happening is super apps are being created, and a lot of cross-fertilization is being done. The second way of marketing is there's this blend of digital and physical going on, and we will see more and more of these as we go forward. Another one is data and what I would call hidden data. For example, companies like Spotify. Spotify not only have your taste in music, but then they'll say, okay, we can look at concerts. And if it's concerts, so which city is this concert in? So you can look at travel. So the one little bit of hidden data and you can find your way through. Another company is Shopify. Shopify has got itself into e-commerce and providing the financial service at the back end. Over 50% of revenues and a large portion of their profits for Shopify is coming from the back end because of these financial structures. So where I'm going with this is that a lot of these things are going digital. You need to find those gaps, those opportunities, and to tap into them. My core advice to you is look at the foundational and the core principles of what service you are providing. If you are able to do that and capture that in a digital format, you're onto a winner. Kodak most people think Kodak was in the business of films and movies and cameras. They were not. They were in the business of memories and moments. Digital photography happened, Instagram took over, Kodak went down, Instagram went straight through the roof. Because they went into the basic principles of just sharing pictures. That's all they did, sharing pictures, and they built a multi-billion-dollar business around that. And there are many, many examples like that, just to go back to the basics and say, how can we control and tap into those basics and build your utility around that core and build it around humanity. Because anything that can be taken by a robot or machine learning will go to robots because it'll be 1,000 times faster and 1,000 times cheaper. But anything that cannot be digitized, love, intuition, humanity, wisdom, common sense, heart, soul, spirit, humanity, wisdom, all of these things are not digitizable, at least not for the next 20, 30 years. If they are not digitizable, they are 1,000,000 times more valuable. So build your businesses and your products which enable you to deliver that. Get into learning and education, which gives you wisdom and empathy for students. Don't just teach them classes. If you go into another business, see how you can find ways to provide a better service, whether it's for the new heroes of the world are the first responders, the nurses and the doctors. Okay? The doctors were always heroes, but the nurses and the firefighters were never heroes. They are now. I think that's one of the things. So opportunities in that space.
Yes.
Yes,
Another question.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. There is someone who wants to start a business. So let me show the question.
Yeah.
It's Mehreen Marfani. She wants to know, according to COVID, which business is good to start now in Dubai? Her next comment was in Dubai. So she wants to know locally what she can do as a fresh entrepreneur.
Okay. Education and learning, huge business. Healthcare support, huge business. I know there is a lot of platforms that are available for e-commerce. So if you can tap into the existing platforms, then how can you develop from that? That is a huge new business opportunity. If you are indirectly linked to the restaurant business, for example, kitchen as a service is a great example. Build a business, have your kitchen in Al Quoz or in Alawir, but deliver here. Tie up with Talabat, produce your food and deliver here. So what you're doing is just you have just taken something and just shifted it into a different place. Any kind of business that will help people to support themselves, coaching, guidance, any kind of advisory work which has human element that is required is another business. Look at new trends that are potentially coming in. I think the Expo 2021, for example, I know there's a lot of struggle in terms of the old traditional structures, but apparently there are a lot of new businesses that are coming out within that. Commercial real estate in Dubai is looking very, very weak at the moment. If I don't know what is your background, but if you were an architect or tie up with an architect and say, I can give you new workspaces, so that I haven't been back to my office since I think it was the 12th of March was the last time I went to the office. I'll be going there tomorrow, 5 months later. I've been working from home. Now, if you come to me and say, Tariq, I think we can reorganize the office in such a way and we can create workspaces that can bring in collaboration, this, that, and the other, I will go back to the office and I'll start working on it differently, but have a different value proposition. I would pay for that or find a way to share with you in terms of the growth and development. So those are the kinds of new businesses that we can look at.
We have a question from Dave. I will show it right away. He says, as an expert presenter, what do you see as the future of speakers?
Thank you, Dave. Thank you for calling me an expert presenter, because an expert calling me an expert, thank you. I appreciate that. I think the future of communication, presentation is one component of it. The future of communication is extremely relevant and extremely important at this point in time. This new medium needs a completely new way of connecting with people. Dave is an expert in NLP, and he uses the power of NLP to be able to connect, and he's charismatic and he gets there. Now, what kind of charisma do we have online? I think that is something we need to do, and that's something else that we have to work on. Another one is what I would call hybrid structures. So in the future, we will need to be able to be in this online space, but understand how to work with holograms, understand how to work with simultaneous translations, really just go into the screen, get into the screen and be on your side. Because over the next 12 to 24 months, a lot of these opportunities in telepresence will start coming together. Avatars will start coming in. Usage of voice, the voice intonation becomes critical. Not only using voice for recognition and digital onboarding and so on, but using voice as a way to connect with human beings. You know, we used to talk a lot about mindshare in advertising and media. The new word and the new trend is earshare, and that is the growth of podcasting, which is massively growing in the world, surprisingly so. I thought, you know, radio was down, but guess what? Everything has gone up now. We have better equipment to capture things. We have better ways of redesigning stuff and reproducing stuff. So voice-based activity is going to be there. Now, in all of this, going back to basics, and the basics are about empathy, authenticity, humanity, and really just being real and telling stories. The world is about storytelling. So if we can tell authentic stories, the future for speakers, the future for you know, all of you is massive. And I think when people ask me what's the most important thing in public speaking, and I basically say humanity and authenticity, but authenticity number one. If we can do that, if we can open our hearts and be humble and be real and be connected and just be empathetic with everybody, more difficult in a digital environment. But if we can do that, then I think we're on to a good thing. So Dave, we are still in a good business. I'm sure we'll be able to build something from this.
Yes,
Thank you.
definitely. This is something that we will need in all times. Like, we will need to speak, to be online, to be on air. Like you said, we need to share the airspace, make our mark while we are live on different shows all the time. And I think
But
it's going to
the
stay.
word is storytelling. Nousheen, the word is storytelling, authentic storytelling, because people love stories, and the only thing people follow is stories. And throughout time, and the way our brain is structured, we like stories because it actually spreads ideas, and cognitively we are able. That's why kids love stories, because they're very creative, and each one of us share a story in a different way. So we need to become storytellers. Part of some of the future degrees that I talk about are degrees in ethics and anthropology and psychology, but one of them is storytelling, and the other one is music, because music actually connects with both sides of your brain. Music builds empathy. Music enables you to learn how to listen. And as we go forward into the future of listening will become another new muscle in our body, in our brain, to be able to deal with this crisis as we go forward. Steve Jobs is known more by people, by analysts, that he was a very keen observer, but even an even better listener. And that was one of his keys of success. So he actually did a lot of things where he copied stuff, but he didn't say copy, he modeled stuff. But he was listening to what the people were saying and then go beyond the basics and create some new stuff. So listening is going to be, so music, bankers should hire musicians and conductors and so on.
We have
so what's Faisal saying?
Yeah. We have one more question. Should businesses, it's from Na. She says, should businesses redesign their social media strategy to include well-being of their clients and potential clients during this time alongside the promotion of their products and services?
Sure. Yes, absolutely. And again, going back to the core humanity of what we're talking about, yes, we should. Um, right now, one of the worst and the most irritating things are more people selling more products and services. It's tedious, especially when things are difficult. You don't want another product being thrown at you. I think it's a better time to ask the question is, what do you need? How can we help you? How can we work with you? What do we need to develop? What do we need to create? How can we build a future together? Let's change the questions that we ask. So the future is about asking different questions, fresh new questions, and forgetting the old questions and starting fresh and projecting forward, looking at the future in terms of asking a new set of questions. You know, the greatest companies and the greatest discoveries happen by asking a different question. So right now in this COVID crisis and right now in your business, when you're having a difficulty, is not like, oh my God, sales are down, what can we cut? That's the wrong question. It's like, what do people need? What do we have? What are our competencies? How can we redesign, reestablish, restructure, recreate the opportunities and the competencies we have in the company to build a future, rather than saying, what can we cut? Of course, we have to cut things, but that is going to happen as an outcome. But we need to ask a different set of questions, questions from with humanity and compassion, questions with looking at the future in mind, ask questions through the lens of abundance. The world is out there. What can we do with that abundance? Rather than saying, oh my God, the world is dead. We don't have anything to do. I don't have my salary, so the world is ending. Wrong question. Because then you'll only go down a hole and you will just keep burrowing in that hole as opposed to going out there and look at abundance. Now, sometimes people think I'm on some kind of drugs or something like that to have so much positivity, but I still do.
No,
Because
but
I
we need it.
generally have that. Sorry.
We need this drug. We need this drug of positivity.
Yes. And okay, so I've been asked this question, so how can you be so positive and what makes you so positive? I'm being open and vulnerable right now. Things are very, very difficult for me because it's all relative. I have people in my team that I'm really struggling to pay. I pay on time. We've adjusted certain things. I'm doing things that I've never, ever done before. It's painful. Now, but if we have this mental belief and faith that there's a big world out there with opportunities and abundance, all we have to do is find it. Now, at the moment, maybe it's a little bit elusive, but we'll find it. We'll experiment, we'll try, and we'll find something. So I like experiment. I like exploring. And that's how I remain positive. And have faith in yourself, your people, your environment, your friends, and have trust.
I will switch our conversation now, Tariq, because I know I'm taking too much of your time, but I would like to know more about investments, because many small business entrepreneurs must be struggling. Like you said, that it's very difficult for business owners like ourselves and many of our friends to pay our teams on time, to manage our finances efficiently. So if a small business entrepreneur needs, let's say, capital investment again at this time, what do you think are good ways of pitching? What kind of pitches will win? What do you think investors are having in mind? What can appeal to them? Why will they say yes?
That's a golden question. The investors at the moment are holding all the cards because cash is king. Cash is basically everything right now. So I'm going to answer this question in two parts. The first part is people like you and I, people who are influencers. Dave was online. The first thing we need to do is start influencing investors before we talk to the entrepreneurs and the SMEs. Now, this is a good time for the investors to squeeze you and screw you. So what they have to start doing is saying, no, I will not do that right now. I will invest differently, because at this point in time, how do you value a company? You can only value a company on the basis of cash production, future value creation, etc., etc. So the first thing we need to do is to educate our investors to become more empathetic, to be more patient, and to look at things in a different way. Number one. Number two is there are different ways of investment. There's equity-based investment, but there are many, many other ways to come in. You can come in with convertible loans. You can come in with actual loans. I know this market is not very advanced, but in a difficult environment, a convertible loan is probably the best way to be able to gain some kind of traction as far as. Do you know what a convertible loan is?
No.
Okay, so basically, convertible loan is that so your company, Nousheen Mukhtar Associates, you want 100,000 dirhams or whatever, and you value your company at $1 million. $1 million dirhams. So you're saying, I don't want to give away 10% of my company because I think we can do much, much more than that. So it's very difficult to say whether your value of your company is $1 million dirhams or 500,000 dirhams. So what you do is you say, give me a 100,000 dirhams now, and in 1 year's time or 2 years' time, you can convert it into equity in terms of certain milestones that we may have achieved at that point in time. So on that basis, if you have not achieved enough, and then you may have to convert it at a lower level, or if you have achieved a lot, then the valuation will be fair. This is generally how a lot of VCs and early stage angel investors do it. They say, we'll give you a convertible loan. It's an unsecured loan. So that's one way of doing it. Another one is that we need to look at all the assets that are available within an organization and what part of those assets are monetizable. And I mentioned barter earlier on. Can we find a way to create cash through that? Competencies within an organization is another way. What are the competencies that I have within my organization that I can find a way to create some new cash opportunities? I don't think that there are many investors out there. Banks are boring. They are awful. They are not going to lend anything. So anybody who's got hope with banks, sorry?
They are not an option at this moment.
Hardly. The kind of risk profile that they're looking for, the kind of balance sheets they're looking at right now, if you have that kind of a balance sheet, you don't really need the money anyway. They are not managing, and they're not looking at risk because the banks use the tool, I would say, of a post-dated check or an open check as their guarantor. They don't understand risk. Right now, it's about managing risk. So this is the general scenario. Now, let's get to specific items. So if somebody needs to raise money, you need to look at family companies. You need to look at some of your major suppliers and ask them to give you, instead of 3 months, give you 6 months. Instead of 1 month, give you 3 months in terms of working capital. Because working capital, if you don't have working capital, companies collapse. So corporations need to be pitched to where they have cash flow. And I know they are brutal. I mean, for example, I've had this conversation with companies like Etisalat and so on, who are extremely cash rich. But they are the ones who will cut your phone on day one and cut your internet on day two if you haven't paid the bill. So you need to step back with these folks and sort of go to their SME divisions and so on and say, give us services for a period of time. And again, this deferred payment structure. So look at new forms of credit, corporate credit, factoring, barter, and so on, because just pure investment, unless you've got a real business, is tough. There's no easy way out. So I think we need to find a way to ride this storm. As I said, preserve cash, get your competencies in place, ride the storm for the next few months, build from there what the new things you can do, and only then you can move forward. Because at this moment in time, if I was to go, I'll put it personalized, if I was to go in and ask for a loan, I don't think I'll get one. If I was to go and ask for equity, a lot of the value that I have in the company is based around me personally. And they'll say, well, this is not scalable. Therefore, they're not going to invest in it. Now, if I have a product or an app right now, other than e-commerce and stuff like that, which seems to be doing well. So there's some industries that are doing well or fine, but 50% of the industries that are not doing well, we need to step back and relook at our business before we go out. And by the way, this is a good time for collaboration, mergers. Rather than seeking Rather than seeking cash, go for mergers. Become partners with people you never could imagine becoming partners with. So you need a fleet to deliver your product. Partner with the company that, and 2 plus 2 will become 5. Otherwise, it'll become one and one, and both of you will go down. So a lot of partnering, a lot of mergers, a lot of family companies. Look at companies around you which are cash rich, and there are many companies that are cash rich, and see if you can tap into those organizations in some ways. So I'm sorry it wasn't that great an answer in terms of what you can do. I'm sorry there is no magic pill right now, but you need to be imaginative. You need to have innovation. You need to be able to reinvent yourself. You need to be able to look at adjacencies, going with a sense of abundance, and then basically build from there.
Yes. For all my friends who are looking forward for their financial planning and need some help in understanding how to go about it, I'm going to show you the brochure for upcoming program with Tariq. You can join it easily and you will definitely find a lot of value. If you need more help, you can see the email address and website for Tariq. It's moving in the comments down. This is the brief introduction to Tariq once again, and I'm showing it again and again because I want all of us to benefit from the knowledge and experience my friend has. And I'm sure
Thank
for
you.
all those people who need support, Tariq is more than happy to help everybody.
Absolutely. I always start with yes. I always start with caring and giving before I take anything out. So, but thank you for plugging that. But this program is not just me. I am 1 out of 10 international faculty. So there are international there from Cambridge University, from international experts are coming in. There are transformation experts, there are technology experts, the banking and finance experts. My role in this is connecting the dots. Is my bigger understanding and bringing it all together to connect the dots. It's fully certified by OpenEXO, which is from California, from Silicon Valley. It starts on the 16th of next Sunday, 16th of August, and it's once a week, 5 to 7 in the evening on Sunday evenings. It's 4 weeks, and at the end of 4 weeks, we will do 1 or 2 additional modules for the practical execution of everything that we're doing. And you get certified at the end, and you have tools in hand, you have things you can do. Apart from that, there'll be about 500 people on the program. Can you imagine the networking that goes on there? There'll be bank CEOs, there'll be international VCs and all sorts of things, and they all come together. And I also have a community giving back to the community exercise. About 20% of our people who will be there will be poor students, needy entrepreneurs, recommended people from different environments, and we are accepting these people pro bono, and we are giving them additional support because we want to give back and share. So you'll have, not only will you have young, bright people from all over the world who can't afford, but that energy will come in there, and then you'll have the CEOs of banks on the other side. And I was told by some senior people, oh, well, you can't have a student and a CEO in the same group. Answer is yes, you can, and that's the way. I have a reverse mentor. He's 10 years old. I work with young boards all the time. It's one of the products that we provide. So yes, you should come to the program. You learn a lot. If nothing else, you'll make some great friends. And you know something? When you dive into something, you would be surprised that you would find. Say, I'm not in the financial industry. You'd be surprised the kind of things that will come out, because when you're engaged with amazing smart people, things will happen, sparks will fly. And it's called serendipity. It's innovation without, by accident. And there will be a lot of serendipitous things that will happen for people there. And it's not all about finance. It's also about transformation. It's about technology. It's about building businesses. And all of those aspects are being covered with the best of the best in the world. Connecting with moments. And the best in the world. I mean, I literally, they are amongst the global thought leaders. And because of my global infrastructure and my personal goodwill, because I like to give. So when I ask somebody to come and present for a couple of hours on my program, they do. And it's exactly the kind of goodwill that I have with you, Nousheen, as you asked, and I responded. And, and hopefully we can develop from here. But the idea is, the answer is yes, without ego, without any of that. Just do it with humility and give out. And when you give with an open heart and create abundance, it will come to you. If you have your hands open like that, things will come, because that's how you give and that's how you receive.
Dr. Shambhavi wants to know, is it face-to-face or online?
It's online. It's online. It's on Zoom, and it's 2 hours on Friday, every Sunday evening, 5 to 7, and it's online. So that's why we've made it easy, and that's one of the reasons we have the best global experts coming in from Cambridge, from California, from Australia, is because it's online. And we created the time in the evening, 5 to 7 in the evening. So we have people from North America, and we also have people from Australia. So literally, it's a global ecosystem, and that's why the DIFC is supporting us.
Yeah. So if people have to sign up, like if I have to sign up, I have to go to the website, and you can see the website, exponentialtalks.com.
You can see the website. You can come to exponentialtalks.com and it will take you there. Or you can go directly to academy.difc.ae. So it's being done in a very official, very solid kind of a way, with their full support. And so you can register there. So you can come to us and we will guide you on that. You can email me directly. But it would be wonderful, wonderful to have a few people on board who are entrepreneurs and business owners, young people, that will find a new way. And if you spend 10 hours with some of the best minds in the world, some sort of crap's going to come out of that. I mean, I honestly, you dive into something like that, something's going to come out. It can't be.
Of course,
you spend, and I'll tell you the difference between people say, oh, there's so many webinars going on. What's different? What's different is like there's everything available on YouTube on the one hand, but on the other, we still have curated content. What we are doing is curating it, connecting the dots, putting it together, and giving it to you as a complete package, certified, structured, outcome-driven, and direct benefits to you. Otherwise, it's like jumping into an ocean of YouTube. So it's not random. And that's really our value add. It's a couple of $100. It's not going to make me rich or you poor. And that's one of the reasons why we kept it so low, even though the value that the IFC said was at least 5 times, 8 times more. I said, no, I think we need to reach out there, build a community of 500 to 1,000 people, people who start coming together, that by the end of the year, we would have done this thing twice. We'll have 1,000 people in our ecosystem, and wonderful things can happen from then onwards. So please do join us. We'll find ways to absorb you, figure out things. And so please do send me on LinkedIn, email, online, or the DIFC, and you'll be able to find it.
All right. Thank you so much, Tariq. It was amazing to talk to you. I learned a lot, and I'm sure I have received so many wonderful comments about you. Even on my phone, a lot of my friends were texting me that the show is amazing tonight. Why you did not invite Tariq before?
And, there's always a point. There's, obviously, it's good to be here, and thank you for that. I'm sure there are a lot of new people that I don't directly know, and that's one of the reasons I accepted it. Is that I want to reach new people and connect with wonderful new people. And at the end of the day, our hearts and our energy and our spirit is in the same place. And as I started with that, for an exponential crisis, we need an exponential response, but we also need exponential humanity, exponential empathy and values. And that is what I come in with. That's the spirit. That's my voice. That's my connection with all of you. And I'm here to give. I'm here to share. So whatever I can do, I'm delighted to. And I hope I have made some impact in your lives. Follow us, see some of the things we're doing, and you'll see that we do it with authenticity and with a lot of humanity.
Yes. So if you're looking forward to connect with Tariq on the social media, very easy. Just type his name and you will get it. He's very easy to find, a very famous person indeed in Dubai and all over the world. A lot of people have been inspired by him in the past as well. And he's very welcoming for everybody equally. So approachable for you as well. Thank you so much, Tariq, for your time and the amazing conversation. And stay well. Enjoy your evening. Take care.
Thank you. Thanks very much. And thank you, everybody. And stay well. Stay healthy. Cheers.